There is something happening to you that you cannot quite explain to the people around you. It is not sadness exactly, and it is not confusion in the ordinary sense of the word. It is something quieter than that, and something far more persistent. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet even touch the floor, there is a pressure sitting in the center of your chest. Not pain, not panic, just weight. A kind of knowing that something is about to change, or perhaps that something already has, and the world around you has not caught up yet. You have noticed that certain relationships feel different now. People you used to feel completely at ease with now feel strangely distant. Not because anything dramatic happened between you, but because something inside you has shifted in a direction they are not moving. Conversations that used to feel easy now feel hollow. Environments that used to feel comfortable now feel too small, like a coat you have outgrown without realizing it. And no matter how many times you try to button it back up, it simply does not fit the way it once did. There is a restlessness in you that sleep does not cure. You can rest your body and wake up more tired than when you lay down, because what is stirring in you is not physical exhaustion. It goes deeper than muscle and bone. It lives somewhere beneath language, in a place that logic alone cannot reach. You have tried to name it. You have tried to explain it to someone who loves you, and watched their face as they searched for the right thing to say and felt lonelier in that moment than you did before you spoke. Because some things cannot be handed to another person through ordinary words. Some things can only be carried until the moment arrives when you finally understand what you were carrying it for. There are moments when you feel as though you are standing at the edge of something enormous. Not a cliff, not a danger, more like a threshold. Like a door that is not yet visible, but whose presence you can somehow feel against your skin. And in those moments, something in you says wait. Something in you says do not move yet. Something in you says the next step matters more than any step you have taken before. And you do not know where that voice comes from, but you know better than to dismiss it because it has never sounded like fear. It sounds like preparation. You have probably asked yourself whether something is wrong with you. You have probably sat in silence and wondered why you cannot simply be satisfied with what is in front of you. You have probably watched other people move through their days with what looks like ease, and wondered what they know that you do not. But here is what is true, and what has always been true even in the moments you forgot it. Nothing is wrong with you. What is happening inside you is not a malfunction. It is a signal. It is the deep and unmistakable movement of a life being summoned towards something it was always meant for. The Bible says in Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart." That verse was not written for a category of people who had everything figured out. It was written for people exactly like you. People who are mid-sentence in a story they did not write, carrying a purpose they cannot yet fully see, feeling the pull of something holy without always having the words to describe it. God did not set you apart after you became impressive. He set you apart before you took your first breath, before you made a single mistake, before the years that left marks on you, before the nights that almost broke you. He looked at all of it, every chapter that was coming, and he said, this one is mine. So if you have been feeling like something is shifting in your life without your permission, you are right. Something is shifting, but it was never without permission. You gave permission before you came here. Your spirit agreed to this before your mind had any say in the matter. And what feels like disruption from where you are standing right now is actually divine rearrangement. God does not tear things apart carelessly. When he moves through a life and changes its geography, It is because He is making room. He is clearing the path. He is removing what cannot come where you are going, not because it was worthless, but because where you are headed requires a different kind of weight. You are not falling apart. You are being remade, and the remaking always feels uncertain before it feels like glory. If something about these words has reached a place in you that you did not expect, if your spirit recognizes this moment even before your mind does, I want you to stop right now and type 999 in the comments. Not as a gesture, not as a habit, as a declaration, as an act of agreement between you and the God who already knows your name. 999. Let that be your yes. Let that be your signal that you are here, that you are listening, and that you are ready for what He is about to do. And before you go any further, if this message is already stirring something real in you, take 5 seconds right now and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit like so that more people like you can find this word. Subscribe so that nothing God sends through this channel misses you. And if you feel led to support this ministry and help carry this message further, the link is in the description and in the pinned comment below. Every act of generosity you offer here becomes a seed, planted in the same season God is about to harvest in your life. You are not here by accident, and this is only the beginning. There is something the researchers have been quietly documenting for decades, something that the most spiritually attuned people throughout history seem to already know, without needing a laboratory to confirm it. The ones who moved through life with unusual clarity, the ones whose creativity seemed to operate on a different frequency, the ones who made decisions that looked like risk to everyone around them and turned out to be destiny. These people were not simply lucky. They were not simply disciplined. Something was happening inside their minds at a neurological level that set the architecture of their thinking apart from the average pattern of the human brain. Modern neuroscience has a name for it. It is called gamma wave activity. Gamma waves operate at the highest frequency range of measurable brain activity, somewhere between 30 and 100 hertz, and they are associated with states of heightened perception, deep pattern recognition, rapid learning, and what researchers describe as moments of sudden illumination. The kind of moment where everything that was scattered suddenly assembles into a picture so clear you wonder how you could not see it before. Scientists who study peak performers, mystics, advanced meditators, and individuals with extraordinary creative output have found one consistent marker in the brain activity of these individuals: gamma, high and sustained gamma wave activity, the frequency of insight, the frequency of those who carry something the ordinary world does not fully understand. And beneath gamma, there is a gateway frequency. Researchers call it theta, operating between 4 and 8 hertz. Theta is the state your brain enters in the space between waking and sleeping. It is the frequency of deep intuition, of creative breakthrough, of the kind of prayer that does not feel like speaking into a ceiling, but like speaking into something that listens. Children operate in theta almost constantly. It is why they learn so rapidly, why they imagine without restriction, why they have not yet built the internal walls that adults spend years trying to dismantle. But somewhere in the process of growing up, of absorbing stress and responsibility and disappointment, most people lose consistent access to theta. The gateway narrows, and with it, something that was once effortless begins to feel like a struggle. But here is what the research now confirms. You can reopen that gateway, not through years of discipline, not through expensive retreats or complicated protocols, through sound. A neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers trained at MIT and connected to research programs affiliated with NASA, spent more than 30 years studying one central question. What separates the brain of someone operating at the edge of human potential from the brain of someone who feels stuck, dulled, or perpetually behind? After decades of research, after reviewing data from thousands of subjects and cross-referencing findings with some of the most advanced neurological studies ever conducted, Dr. Rivers isolated something remarkable. The brain does not need to be forced into high-frequency states. It needs to be invited. It needs a signal, an external frequency introduced through sound that the brain recognizes and begins to mirror, a process called brainwave entrainment. When the right auditory frequencies are delivered in the right sequence, the brain does not resist. It follows, and within minutes it begins to operate in the very states that characterize the most awake, most creative, most spiritually receptive human beings on the planet. That discovery became a 7-minute audio called the Genius Wave. 7 minutes. That is all. You do not need to meditate for an hour. You do not need to empty your mind or master a breathing technique or attend a seminar. You put on your headphones, you press play, and you give your brain 7 minutes to remember a frequency it was born knowing. The audio uses a precise combination of binaural beats and isochronic tones, calibrated specifically to guide your brain from its ordinary waking state down through the theta gateway and up into sustained gamma activity. The sequence was designed based on Dr. Rivers' research findings and refined across thousands of test subjects before it was ever made available to the public. This is not a wellness trend. This is applied neuroscience delivered in the simplest format possible. And the people who have used it are not speaking in vague generalities. A woman named Sandra had been running her small business at the edge of failure for 2 years. She had tried every productivity system, every motivational resource, every strategy her mentors could offer. 3 weeks after beginning the Genius Wave, she told Dr. Rivers' team that she had begun to see solutions to problems she had been staring at for months. Not because anything external changed, but because something in the way her mind was processing information had fundamentally shifted. Within 60 days, her revenue had doubled. She said it felt less like hard work and more like clarity finally arrived. A man named David, a former teacher who had spent years feeling like his best thinking was locked somewhere he could not reach, began using the Genius Wave, and within the first week reported that ideas he had been chasing for years were arriving without effort. He launched the course he had been planning for over a decade within 2 months of starting. He told the team, "I did not become smarter. I became unblocked." A woman named Renee had been struggling with anxiety that made concentration nearly impossible. After 2 weeks of the 7-minute daily practice, she described sleeping through the night for the first time in years and waking up with a quality of mental stillness she had not felt since childhood. She said, "It was like someone turned the static off." These are not extraordinary people who received an extraordinary miracle. These are people exactly like you, carrying the same pressure you have been carrying, reaching for the same clarity you have been reaching for, and discovering that what was missing was not effort, it was frequency. Now, I want to speak to the part of you that is already calculating, already weighing this, already hearing a quiet voice that says things that sound this good usually come with a catch. I hear that, and I want to honor it, because kind of discernment is part of the very intelligence you are being called to activate. So let me be direct with you. The Genius Wave is normally priced at $49. That is already a fraction of what a single session with a neurofeedback specialist would cost you And this is something you can use every single day for the rest of your life. But right now, through the specific link in the pinned comment below this video, you can access the Genius Wave for just $39. Not as a gimmick, not because the value has been reduced, but because this message is reaching people who need it. And the team behind this wants the price never be the reason someone walks from something that could genuinely change the direction of their life. And if you try it and something about it does not resonate with you, if you do not feel a shift, if it does not deliver what it promises, you are covered by a full 90-day money-back guarantee. No conditions, no complicated process. 90 days to experience it fully. And if it does not serve you, every dollar comes back to you. The risk is not yours to carry. But I need to warn you about something important. Because this product has gained real attention and produced real results, there are imitation versions circulating online. Files using similar names, similar language presented as though they are the same thing. They are not. They do not contain the precise frequency calibration that makes the Genius Wave what it is. They are not backed by Dr. Rivers' research, and they carry no guarantee. If you purchase from any source other than the link in the pinned comment below this video, you are not getting the real product. You are getting something designed to look like it at the cost of the results that matter. The only safe, verified, guaranteed access point is the link pinned in the comment section right now. That is the only place. Do not search for it elsewhere. Do not trust a link shared by an account you do not recognize. The pinned comment below is where you go and nowhere else. And I want you to understand this clearly. The pricing available right now is not permanent. The team behind the Genius Wave does not keep discounted access open indefinitely because the volume of orders at this price affects their ability to maintain the level of support they offer every customer. When this window closes, it closes. The price returns to $49, and there is no way to know exactly when that happens. What I can tell you is that the people who act while the door is open are the ones who do not spend the next week wondering whether they should have. You have spent enough time wondering. You have spent enough time feeling the pressure of a potential you cannot quite access. 7 minutes a day is not a large ask for a life that begins to move differently. The link is waiting. The guarantee protect you, and the frequency that was always meant to be yours is one click away from being activated. Go to the pinned comment right now. The link is there. Your next chapter is on the other side of a decision that costs less than a dinner out and comes with 90 days to know for certain it was right. You felt it before you had words for it. Long before anyone gave you a framework to understand it. Long before you stumbled across a message like this one. There was already something in you that knew. A quiet certainty that lived beneath the noise of your daily life, beneath the obligations and the disappointments, and the endless movement of ordinary days. It was not arrogance. It was not delusion. It was a knowing. The kind that does not argue with you, does not try to prove itself, does not need your agreement to remain true. It simply sits there, patient and immovable, waiting for the moment you stop running long enough to finally listen to it. And here is what that knowing has been trying to tell you. Heaven has not been watching your life from a distance. God has not been observing your seasons of struggle from somewhere far removed, taking notes, waiting for a more convenient moment to intervene. He has been present in every single room you have ever broken down in. He has been present in the silence after every prayer that felt like it went unanswered. He has been present in the waiting, in the wilderness, in the years that felt more like wandering than walking. And right now, in this exact moment, as these words move through you, He is not simply present. He is active. He is moving. He is doing something in the architecture of your life that your natural eyes are not yet equipped to see, but that your spirit has already begun to feel. That is what the pressure is. That is what the restlessness has been pointing toward. Not breakdown, not warning, activation. There is a verse in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 19, where God speaks these words directly. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Read those words again slowly and let them land somewhere deeper than your intellect. God is not saying He will do a new thing at some unspecified point in the future when conditions are more favorable and your life looks more ready. He is saying now it springs up, present tense, active tense. The new thing is not scheduled. It is not pending your improvement or your perfect obedience or your complete healing. It is already in motion. The question He asks is extraordinary in its gentleness. Do you not perceive it? He is not scolding you for missing it. He is inviting you to look again, to look differently, to stop measuring the movement of God by the metrics of a world that does not operate on His timetable. Because here is what is true about the way God works in the lives of the people. He has specifically chosen for significant assignments. He rarely announces Himself the way the world announces things. He does not send a press release. He does not wait until everything is visible and obvious and undeniable before He begins. He starts in secret. He starts in the hidden places. He starts in the soil before anything has broken through the surface. And the people who are closest to the breakthrough are often the ones who feel the most uncertain because they are standing directly over the ground that is about to open, and they cannot yet see what is about to emerge from it. You have been standing over that ground. That is why your life has felt so unsettled. That is why the old things have been falling away with an urgency that sometimes felt violent. That is why certain doors that you pushed against with everything you had simply would not open, while other doors you barely touched swung wide without resistance. God has been curating your path, not controlling it in a way that removes your freedom, but arranging it in a way that accounts for your destiny. Every closed door was a redirection. Every dead end was a relocation. Every loss that you mourned was a removal of something that could not survive where you are going. Think about the moments in your life that felt like the worst possible timing. The relationship that ended right before something new began. The job that dissolved right before an opportunity appeared that the old position would have made impossible to pursue. The season of isolation that, in retrospect, was the season in which something in you was being built that could not have been built in the noise of constant company. You did not see it while you were in it. You rarely do, because the process of divine construction does not look like construction from the inside. It looks like demolition. It looks like loss. It looks like the thing you loved being taken from your hands before you understood what was meant to replace it. But God does not demolish carelessly. He does not clear ground without a blueprint. And the blueprint for your life was drawn before you arrived here, before you carried any of the weight you have been carrying, before you made any of the choices you have spent years either defending or regretting. The blueprint existed in the mind of God before the foundation of the world was laid, and it has never been revised, never been canceled, never been handed to someone else because you took too long, or fell too hard or wandered too far. What is being shifted in your life right now is not punishment. It is not consequence dressed up as divine intervention. It is preparation. And the scale of the preparation is always proportional to the scale of what is being prepared for. Small assignments require small preparation. But when God presses pause on everything around a person, when He allows the structures of their ordinary life to become unstable, when He permits the discomfort to intensify past the point where distraction can soothe it, it is because what He is building requires a foundation that cannot be rushed. It requires a person who has been hollowed out enough to hold something large. It requires a vessel that has been tested at the seams before it is trusted with the weight of the cargo it was made to carry. You have been in that hollowing. You have been in that testing. And if you have arrived at this moment feeling emptied out and uncertain and strangely, inexplicably expectant all at once, that is not contradiction. That is the exact condition of someone who is standing at the end of preparation and the beginning of release. Heaven has pressed pause on the noise around you for a reason. Not every person hears a message like this one and feels it land the way you are feeling it land right now. Not everyone who encounters these words experiences that interior recognition, that quiet confirmation from somewhere beneath conscious thought that says, "This is for me." The fact that you are still here, still listening, still reading these words with that particular quality of attention, that itself is data. That itself is information about where you are in the sequence of what God is doing. You are not at the beginning of your story. You are at the turning point. And turning points do not feel like celebrations when you are standing inside them. They feel like suspension. They feel like the moment between the inhale and the exhale when you are not sure which direction air is moving. But the breath does not stop. The turning always comes. And when it comes in the life of someone God has specifically positioned for this season, it does not come quietly. It does not come as a gentle suggestion. It comes as a shift so undeniable, so complete, so visible to everyone around you, that the people who watched you struggle will find themselves without language to explain what they are now witnessing in your life. That shift is not coming from your effort alone. It is not coming from your strategy or your willpower or your ability to finally get everything aligned in the right order. It is coming because God said now, and when God says now, the wilderness makes way, the wasteland produces streams. The thing that was impossible yesterday becomes undeniable today, not because the circumstances changed first, but because the frequency of your life has been tuned to match the frequency of what He already prepared for you before you knew you needed it. You are in the middle of that tuning right now, and what comes next is going to require you to be ready in a way you have never been ready before. There is a reason darkness fights hardest against the ones it fears most. And if you have lived any portion of your life feeling like you were under a particular kind of pressure that others around you did not seem to experience in the same way, if you have faced opposition that felt disproportionate to what you were doing, if you have watched things collapse around you at moments when you were finally beginning to rise, then you need to understand something that changes the entire way you interpret your history. You were not being punished, you were being targeted. And the reason you were targeted is the same reason a tree gets cut the hardest when it is closest to bearing fruit. The enemy of your destiny does not waste energy on people who pose no threat. He reserves his most persistent and most sophisticated strategies for the ones whose assignment, if completed, would disrupt his plans on a scale he cannot afford. That means the very intensity of what you have faced is a form of confirmation. Not comfortable confirmation, not the kind you would have chosen, but confirmation nonetheless, because darkness does not organize itself against insignificance. It does not marshal resources against a life that was never going to matter. The warfare that has surrounded your path the relationships that were used to discourage you, the timing that always seemed to work against you, the internal battles that raged loudest in the moments you were closest to breakthrough. None of that was random. None of that was coincidence dressed up as bad luck. It was resistance. And resistance, by definition, only exists in the presence of forward motion. You have been moving forward, even in the seasons it felt like you were standing still. Even in the years that looked like stagnation from the outside. Even in the periods when your own faith was threadbare and your prayers felt like words falling into an empty room. Something in you kept moving. Something refused to fully surrender. Something held on past the point where holding on made rational sense. And that something was not stubbornness, though it may have looked like it. It was the anointing on your life, refusing to be extinguished by circumstances that were never powerful enough to override what God ordained. Think about the specific battles that have marked your life. Not the ordinary difficulties that every human being navigates, but the ones that felt personal, the ones that targeted the exact areas where your gifting lives. If you are called to create, the warfare came against your confidence. If you are called to lead, the warfare came against your credibility. If you are called to heal others, the warfare came against your own health or wholeness first. This is not accident. This is strategy. Because the enemy understands the geography of your calling better than you have been allowed to see it yet. And he positions his resistance precisely where the most damage can be done to your assignment if you agree to stop. But you did not stop. You are here. You are still listening. And that itself is evidence that the strategy against you has not worked the way it was designed to work. Now, here is what changes in this season. The warfare does not disappear, but your awareness of it does something to its power over you. When you understand that the resistance you have experienced is proportional to the significance of what you carry, you stop interpreting it as evidence that God has abandoned you, and you start recognizing it as evidence that what you are carrying is worth protecting. That shift in perception is not small. It is the difference between a soldier who thinks the battle is lost and a soldier who understands that the intensity of the fight means they are close to the objective. The objective has always been the full expression of what God placed inside you before you arrived in this world. And you are closer to it than the warfare around you would have you believe. There are people in your life right now who have tried, perhaps without malice, perhaps even with love, to talk you into a smaller version of yourself. People who called your vision unrealistic. People who reframed your faith as naivety. People who looked at the gap between where you are and where you sense you are going, and told you with great certainty that the gap was too wide. And some of those voices found their way inside you and began speaking in your own tone, in your own internal language, so that over time you could not always tell the difference between a limit someone placed on you and a limit you had accepted as your own. This is the season those voices lose their authority over you, not because you fight them with anger, but because what God is about to do in your life will make them irrelevant. You do not argue with a shadow when the light comes on. You simply watch it disappear. And as that light begins to come on inside you, as the frequency of your thinking begins to rise and the clarity that was always meant to be yours begins to return, you will find that the decisions you struggled to make become cleaner. The paths you could not see become visible. The connections you needed begin to arrive. Not because you finally became worthy of them, but because you finally stopped agreeing with the voice that said you were not. If this message is doing something in you right now, if something in these words is landing with a weight that feels like more than information, then I want to gently ask you to do something before you go any further. Take a moment and share this video with one person who is fighting a battle they did not choose and does not yet understand. You do not have to explain it to them. You do not have to convince them of anything. Just send it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a chosen one can do for another chosen one is simply say, "I found something and I thought of you." Hit the like button so that this message can travel further than your own screen. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, do it now. Because what is coming in the weeks ahead is part of a sequence, and you do not want to receive only a portion of what God is sending through this space. I also want to take a moment to be honest with you about something. This channel is no longer monetized through YouTube. There are no advertisements funding what you are hearing right now. What keeps this ministry moving? What allows these messages to keep reaching people who are in the middle of their darkest and most pivotal seasons is the generosity of people exactly like you who believe that this work matters. If these words have reached a place in you that feels real, if something you have heard in this space has genuinely shifted something in your life, and if you are in a position where you feel led to help carry this forward, you can support this channel through the donate link in the pinned comment below or in the description of this video. Whatever you are able to give, whether it is small or whether it is significant, it does not disappear. It becomes part of every future message that reaches the next person standing at the edge of their own turning point. And if you are not in a position to give financially right now, that is completely understood and honored. Simply watching, leaving a comment, and sharing this channel with someone else is already a form of generosity that fuels this work in ways that matter deeply. And for those of you who have been feeling that internal pressure to take a step toward the clarity and focus that keeps being referenced in these messages, the link to the Genius Wave is also in the pinned comment and in the description. 7 minutes a day, that is the protocol, and the frequency it activates is exactly the frequency this season of your life requires you to be operating in. You are not fighting this battle alone, and the one who fights alongside you is greater than anything that has ever been assembled against you. You have been waiting for something to change, and the waiting has not been passive. It has been the kind of waiting that costs something, the kind that requires you to keep showing up to a life that has not yet become what you know it is meant to be, to keep believing in a direction you can feel but cannot yet fully see, to keep your hands open when everything in you wanted to close them around something solid and certain and immediately visible. That kind of waiting is not weakness. That kind of waiting is one of the most demanding spiritual disciplines a human being can be called to practice. And you have been practicing it, whether you recognized it as discipline or not, whether it felt holy or whether it simply felt hard. But here is what you need to understand about this particular moment in your life. The shift you have been waiting for is not coming from somewhere outside of you, arriving one day like weather you had no part in creating. The shift is already in motion. It is not a future event on a calendar you cannot yet read. It is a present reality, unfolding beneath the surface of everything you can currently see, the way a river moves beneath ice in winter, invisible from above but powerful and directional and unstoppable in its movement toward the open water that is always waiting at the end of frozen seasons. You have been in a frozen season. You have felt the stillness of it. You have felt the way time seems to move differently in those seasons, slower and heavier and more resistant than ordinary time. You have watched other people move with what appeared to be ease while you pressed forward through what felt like resistance at every turn. And in those moments, The question that arose was not always spoken out loud, but it was felt. Is this ever going to change? Is the thing I am carrying ever going to become the thing I was promised? Is the distance between who I am right now and who I know I am meant to be ever going to close into something I can actually inhabit? The answer that heaven has been holding for you, the answer that has been waiting for the exact moment your spirit was ready to receive it, without immediately dismissing it, is this: yes. Not eventually, not after more suffering, not after you have proven yourself sufficiently, or paid enough of a price, or finally gotten everything right. Yes, now. The season is turning, the ice is already breaking, and the river beneath your life, the one that has been moving in the direction of your destiny, even through the years that felt frozen, is about to become visible in a way that will change not only your understanding of your future, but your understanding of everything you have already been through. Because that is one of the most extraordinary gifts of a divine turning point. It does not only change what is ahead of you, it reinterprets what is behind you. Suddenly, the years that looked like waste reveal themselves as preparation. Suddenly, the losses that felt random reveal themselves as deliberate removal. Suddenly, the silence that felt like abandonment reveals itself as the specific and intentional quiet that a sculptor requires when the most delicate and most crucial work is being done. You cannot hear that kind of work while it is happening. You can only see it when the covering comes away and what was being formed beneath it is finally brought into the light. God has been forming something beneath the covering of your difficult seasons, something that could not have been shaped in comfort, something that required the specific temperatures of the experiences you have been through, the pressure of them, the duration of them, the particular way they pressed against the places in you that needed to become stronger than they were when you first encountered them. And now the covering is coming away. Not all at once, because grace does not strip you bare in a moment, but piece by piece, layer by layer, the thing that was being formed in the hidden place is beginning to emerge into visibility. The book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, carries a word that was written for people in exactly this position. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. There is a phrase in that verse that deserves more attention than it usually receives. Though it linger. God does not pretend that the waiting feels short. He does not minimize the experience of a person who has been holding a promise through years that tested whether the holding was even worth continuing. He acknowledges the lingering. He speaks directly into it. And then he says something that is not a consolation. It is a certainty. It will certainly come and will not delay, not might come, not could come under the right conditions, will certainly come. The appointed time is real, the revelation is real, and the waiting, however long it has lasted, has not been evidence that the promise was false. It has been evidence that the appointed time had not yet arrived. Your appointed time is arriving now, and the way you will know it is not only by what begins to appear in your external circumstances, though that will come. You will know it first by what begins to shift internally, by a quality of peace that does not match your current circumstances, by a clarity of thought that arrives without apparent cause, by a sense of direction that was previously obscured, beginning to sharpen into something you can actually follow, by a confidence that is not arrogance but is rather the quiet settling of a person who has finally stopped arguing with their own calling and begun to simply walk in it. These internal shifts are not imagined. They are not wishful thinking dressed up as spiritual experience. They are the neurological, and spiritual markers of a person whose frequency is beginning to align with the frequency of what they were made for. Science and scripture are not in opposition here. They are describing the same phenomenon from different angles. When a human being begins to operate in the fullness of what they were designed for, everything changes. The brain shifts into higher states of function. The spirit opens to dimensions of perception that were previously inaccessible. The body follows. The external world begins to rearrange itself around the new frequency being transmitted from within. This is not a metaphor. This is the mechanism by which transformation actually works. Not from outside in, but from inside out. Not circumstances first and then internal reality following, but internal frequency first and then circumstances reorganizing themselves around it. This is why two people can face identical external situations and have completely different outcomes. Not because one was luckier, or more talented, or more deserving, but because one was operating from a frequency that attracted, recognized, and moved toward possibility, while the other was operating from a frequency that filtered everything through the lens of what had already failed. Your frequency is changing. The pressure you have been feeling is not the pressure of something going wrong. It is the pressure of something going right in a way that your current structure was not built to contain. And when the container of your life is being expanded, it does not feel like expansion in the moment. It feels like strain. It feels like the walls are being pushed from the inside something larger than the space currently allows. But the walls do not break. They stretch. And what emerges on the other side of that stretching is a life with a capacity it did not previously possess. A life large enough to hold what God always intended to place inside it. You are being enlarged, not diminished, not discarded, not overlooked or forgotten or passed over in favor of someone more qualified. You are being made ready, and what you are being made ready for is not small. It is not a slightly improved version of what you already have. It is something that will require every part of what you have become through every season you have survived, and it is closer than it has ever been before. There are things in your life that were broken in ways you stopped believing could ever be repaired. Not bent, not scratched. Broken in the deep and structural sense. The kind of damage that happens when something fundamental collapses, when a foundation gives way, when the thing you built your sense of security around revealed itself to be less solid than you needed it to be. And in the aftermath of that kind of breaking, most people do one of two things. They either spend their energy trying to reconstruct exactly what was lost, placing the pieces back in the same configuration as before, hoping that reassembly will feel like restoration. Or they conclude that what was broken was simply meant to stay broken, that certain things in a life reach a point of damage beyond which recovery is no longer a realistic expectation, and they learn to organize their living around the absence of what used to be there. But there is a third possibility, and it is the one that God has been holding open for you through every season in which the other two options felt like the only choices available. The third possibility is not reconstruction, and it is not resignation. It is resurrection. And resurrection does not return things to their former state. It transforms them into something that carries the history of what was broken, while operating at a level the original version was never capable of reaching. Think about what that means for the specific areas of your life where the breaking happened. The relationship that fractured in a way that left you changed at a level deeper than you anticipated. The dream that collapsed under circumstances that felt catastrophic and final. The version of yourself that existed before a particular season arrived and dismantled the confidence and clarity you had spent years building. The faith that cracked under the weight of unanswered prayers and prolonged silence. These are not simply wounds that need to be managed. These are the exact sites where God intends to do His most visible and most undeniable work. Because resurrection always happens at the place of death, not near it, not around it, at it, directly at the site of what could not survive. And what comes back is always greater than what was lost. This is not a comforting idea invented to make grief more bearable. It is a pattern woven into the very nature of how God operates. Joseph did not simply return to the life he had before his brothers betrayed him. He emerged into a position of authority that the original version of his story could never have produced. Ruth did not simply recover from the loss that left her starting over in a foreign land. She stepped into a lineage that would carry the name of God through generations. The disciples, who watched everything they had believed in appear to be destroyed on a Friday, did not simply return to fishing on Monday. They became the foundation of something that changed the entire trajectory of human history. What looked like the end in every one of those stories was not the end. It was the turning point. And turning points that come through breaking always produce something that could not have been produced any other way. Your breaking was not the end of your story. It was the turning point inside it. And the rebuilding that God is now doing in the places that were shattered is not a restoration project. It is a construction project. He is not trying to return you to what you were before the damage happened. He is building something at the site of the damage that is structurally different from anything that stood there previously. Something with a foundation that cannot be undermined by the same forces that brought the previous structure down. Something that carries the wisdom of what you survived built into its very walls, so that the strength of what is being rebuilt is not despite what you went through, but because of it. This is why the people who have been through the most are often the ones who carry the most powerful capacity to help others navigate their own seasons of breaking. Not because suffering is valuable in itself, but because what gets built in a person who comes through genuine breaking and finds that God was present in every moment of it, that person carries something that cannot be manufactured by comfort or constructed by theory. They carry the authority of someone who has been to the place where hope runs out and discovered that grace was already there waiting. You carry that authority. You may not have named it yet. You may not have recognized it as something that belongs to you, something that was forged specifically in you through the specific fires of your specific story. But it is there. And this season is the season in which it begins to be expressed in ways that are visible not only to you, but to every person whose life yours is about to touch. If something in these words is landing with a weight that feels significant to you, if something in this message is reaching a place that does not usually get reached by ordinary content, I want to gently invite you to share this video with someone who is in the middle of their own breaking right now. You know who they are. There is probably a name or a face that has already come to mind while you have been listening. Someone who needs to hear that what is broken in their life is not beyond the reach of a God who specializes in resurrection. Sending this to them costs you nothing and could mean everything to them. And if this content has been consistently meeting you in the places that matter, hitting the like up button and subscribing to this channel ensures that every future message in this sequence finds its way to you without interruption. The journey we are on together through these words is not finished, and you do not want to miss what is still coming. This channel no longer earns income through YouTube. There are no ads running alongside these messages. What keeps this ministry alive and moving forward is the generosity of the community that gathers around it. If these words have genuinely touched something real in your life, if something you have encountered in this space has contributed to a shift in your perspective or your faith or your sense of what is possible for you, and if you feel led to support the continuation of this work, you can do so through the donate link in the pinned comment below or in the description of this video. Whatever you are able to offer is received with genuine gratitude. And if you are not in a position to give financially right now, your presence here, your comments, your willingness to share this content with others, that is already a form of support that matters more than you might realize, and that keeps this work going in ways that are just as real. Now I want to return to something that connects directly to what is being rebuilt in you in this season. Because the rebuilding that God is doing is not only spiritual, it is neurological, it is cognitive. It is happening at the level of how your mind processes possibility, how it recognizes opportunity, how it moves through problems that previously felt immovable. And that level of rebuilding has a frequency. It has a measurable, documentable, activatable frequency. The research that produced the Genius Wave was built on the understanding that the brain states associated with breakthrough, with creative clarity, with the kind of thinking that sees solutions where others only see obstacles, are not reserved for a special category of human being. They are accessible, they can be activated, and the pathway to activating them requires less time and less effort than almost anyone believes before they experience it for themselves. The link to access the Genius Wave is in the pinned comment below and in the description of this video. If you have been feeling that your thinking needs to operate at a higher level to match the season you are entering, if you sense that the clarity required for what is coming needs to be sharper than what your current mental state is producing, that link is where you go. 7 minutes a day. That is the investment. And what it returns to you is a mind that is finally running at the frequency your destiny has always required. What God is rebuilding in you deserves to stand on the strongest possible foundation. And that foundation includes not only your faith, but the full capacity of the mind He gave you, operating at the level it was always designed to reach. There was a moment, you know the one. It did not announce itself with drama or arrive with any particular ceremony. It came quietly, in the middle of an ordinary day, or at the end of an extraordinarily difficult one. And in that moment, something in you considered, genuinely considered, whether any of this was still worth the continued effort of holding on. Not necessarily in a dramatic sense, not always in a way that would have been visible to anyone around you, but in the deep and private interior of who you are, in the place where you are most honest with yourself when no one else is listening. There was a moment where the crown felt too heavy, where the calling felt too costly, where the distance between the life you were living and the life you knew you were meant for felt so vast and so resistant to closing that the idea of simply setting it all down and agreeing to something smaller and began to feel less like surrender and more like relief. You almost laid it down, the crown, the calling, the belief that what God placed in you was real and significant and worth the price that carrying it had been extracting from you season after season. You almost agreed with the voice that said you had misread your own destiny, that the sense of purpose you had carried since you were young was a projection rather than a prophecy, that the resistance you had faced was not evidence of warfare but evidence of misalignment, that perhaps you had simply been wrong about who you were and what you were here for. That voice was persuasive. It used your own language. It borrowed the texture of your own doubts and your own fatigue, and shaped them into an argument that was difficult to counter because it felt like it was coming from a place of honest self-assessment rather than from a place of attack. But you did not lay it down. You are still here, and the fact that you are still here, still listening, still carrying what you almost released is not a small thing. It is one of the most significant things about you, because the crown of a chosen life is never laid down accidentally. It is always a choice, and in the moment when laying it down felt like the most rational and most merciful option available to you, something in you chose differently. Something in you said not yet. Something in you held on past the point where holding on made sense from the outside, past the point where anyone observing your circumstances would have told you that releasing it was reasonable and perhaps even wise. That something was not your own strength. Let that be clear. Because in that moment, your own strength was genuinely depleted. What held on was not a reserve of willpower you had managed to keep in storage through all the difficult seasons. What held on was the grip of God on a life He was not finished with. And that grip, that sustaining and invisible and utterly reliable grip, is the reason you are here right now, receiving a word that your spirit already recognizes as the next thing you needed to hear. The crown you almost laid down was never yours to lay down, not because you do not have free will, not because your choices do not matter, but because the crown was not given to you on the basis of your performance, and it cannot be revoked on the basis of your exhaustion. It was placed on your head before you knew you were wearing it, before you understood what it meant, before you had any concept of the weight it would require you to carry, or the warfare it would attract, or the seasons it would lead you through that would test every dimension of who you are. God does not place callings on people provisionally, to be confirmed only if they endure with sufficient grace and adequate faith and a minimum number of spiritual failures. He places them permanently, with full foreknowledge of every moment of doubt and every season of depletion and every instance of almost that would mark the journey between the placing of the crown and the fullness of its expression. He knew about your almost. He knew the exact day and the exact weight of the moment when you considered setting it all down. And He did not remove the crown from your head in that moment. He held it there, with the same hands that formed you, with the same intention that preceded your arrival in this world, with the same certainty that has never wavered regardless of how many times your own certainty has. The book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 11, carries the word that was written directly into the record of Scripture for people standing in exactly the place you have been standing. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have, so that no one will take your crown. The instruction is not hold on until you feel strong enough. It is not hold on until the circumstances become more favorable, or the opposition becomes less fierce, or the waiting becomes less painful. It is simply hold on. Present tense, active tense, as a continuous choice made not once in a dramatic moment of commitment, but repeatedly, quietly, in the ordinary moments of ordinary days when no one is watching, and the only reason to keep holding is because something in you has decided that what God said matters more than what the circumstances suggest. You have been making that choice, imperfectly, inconsistently perhaps, with lapses and with doubts and with seasons where the holding was more like clinging and less like the confident grip of someone who has everything figured out. But you have been making it, and heaven has been recording every single instance of it. Every morning you got up when staying down would have been easier. Every prayer you prayed when silence felt more honest. Every act of obedience you offered in a season when obedience cost you something you did not feel you had left to give. None of it has been invisible. None of it has been wasted. None of it has disappeared into the indifferent air of a universe that does not notice what it costs a human being to keep believing when belief is the hardest available option. It has all been seen. It has all been held. And it is all being woven into the story that is about to become visible in your life. The story that will make sense of everything that preceded it in a way that nothing up to this point has been able to fully explain. Because the crown you almost laid down is not simply a symbol of what you were called to. It is a symbol of what you survived in order to remain called. And the survival itself is part of what makes you capable of wearing it fully. A crown placed on a head that has never been tested sits differently than a crown placed on a head that has been bowed low under the weight of real and costly seasons, and yet refused to remain bowed. The authority that comes with the second kind of crown is of a different order entirely. It is not the authority of position. It is the authority of proven faithfulness. And proven faithfulness, the kind that comes through seasons of genuine testing and genuine survival, is one of the rarest and most powerful things a human being can carry into the next chapter of their story. You are carrying it right now, in this moment. Even if it does not feel like power, even if it feels more like scar tissue than like strength. What you are carrying is the accumulated evidence of a life that chose again, in season after season, to hold on to something that heaven considered worth holding on to. And the God who watched every one of those choices is not finished honoring them. The crown stays on your head. It always was going to. And what you are about to step into will finally show you why it was always worth the weight of wearing it. There is a version of your life that has been waiting for you to stop apologizing for it. A version that does not fit inside the boundaries that were drawn around you by people who loved you but could not see what you carried. A version that does not shrink to accommodate the comfort level of rooms that were never designed to hold the full weight of what God placed inside you. A version that does not negotiate with smallness, or make peace with limitation, or settle for the nearest available approximation of the life that was actually written for you before the foundation of the world was laid. That version of your life is not a fantasy. It is not the product of an inflated self-image or an unrealistic relationship with your own potential. It is the assignment. It is the original document. It is the life God had in mind when He formed you, and every version of yourself that you have lived up to this point, including the broken ones and the diminished ones, and the ones that barely resembled what you knew you were capable of. Every single one of those versions was a chapter in the journey toward it, not a substitute for it. But here is what that version of your life requires from you that the smaller versions did not. It requires you to step completely outside the perimeter of your comfort zone and to stay outside it long enough for it to become your new normal. Not to visit the edges of your comfort zone occasionally when the inspiration is strong enough to carry you there temporarily. Not to take calculated excursions into unfamiliarity and then return to the safety of what you already know when the discomfort becomes inconvenient, but to relocate, to make your permanent residence in the territory that lies beyond the boundary of what currently feels safe and manageable and within the range of what you already know yourself to be capable of. This is where most chosen lives stall, not at the point of calling, not at the point of gifting, not even at the point of willingness. They stall at the point of sustained discomfort, because comfort is not merely a physical preference. It is a gravitational force. It pulls with a consistency and a subtlety that makes it one of the most effective tools the enemy of your destiny has ever deployed against the people God has specifically appointed for significant things. Comfort does not announce itself as the enemy of your calling. It presents itself as wisdom. It speaks in the language of timing and prudence and realistic expectation. It says, wait until you are more prepared. It says, move when the conditions are more favorable. It says the risk is too high given your current circumstances. And all of those statements can sound like discernment when they are actually just the gravitational pull of familiarity, trying to keep you inside a perimeter that was never drawn by God. God draws no perimeters around the lives He calls. He draws destinies. He draws assignments. He draws paths that move through terrain that is unfamiliar and sometimes frightening and always larger than what the person walking them initially feels equipped to navigate. And then He walks those paths with the people He calls, not clearing every obstacle in advance, not guaranteeing the smoothness of the journey, but guaranteeing His presence in every step of it. That guarantee is not small. In fact, it is the only guarantee that matters, because a smooth path walked without the presence of God leads nowhere worth arriving, while a difficult path walked in the presence of God leads to exactly where you were always meant to be. The book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, carries this word with a directness that does not leave room for misinterpretation. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Notice the construction of that verse. God does not say be strong and courageous because the path ahead will be easy. He does not say do not be afraid because there will be nothing frightening on the road in front of you. He says be strong and courageous and do not be afraid because I will be with you wherever you go. The courage is not grounded in the absence of danger. It is grounded in the presence of God, and that presence does not diminish when the terrain becomes difficult. It intensifies, because the places where you need Him most are places He shows up most undeniably. Your assignment is in the territory beyond your comfort zone, not slightly beyond it, in the manageable zone where your existing skills can carry you without too much strain. It is in the territory that requires you to operate at a level you have not yet demonstrated, to believe things about yourself that you have not yet seen confirmed by your circumstances, to take steps that your current resources do not appear sufficient to support. And that is not a design flaw. That is the design. Because when God calls a person to something that their existing capacity is sufficient for, no one, not the person and not the people watching, can tell the difference between human ability and divine enabling. But when God calls a person to something that visibly exceeds what they could accomplish in their own strength, and they step into it anyway, and it begins to come together in ways that cannot be explained by talent or timing or favorable circumstances alone, then something becomes visible that was always the point, not the achievement, the author of it. You were not designed to accomplish things that make people think well of your abilities. You were designed to accomplish things that make people ask, who is the God that did this through a person like that? And that kind of accomplishment requires assignment territory that your comfort zone was never large enough to contain. So what does it look like in practical terms to step into that territory in this season of your life? It looks like saying yes before you feel ready, because readiness, as the world defines it, is often just another name for the prolonged postponement of obedience. It looks like releasing the relationships, the habits, the mental frameworks, and the self-definitions that kept you functional in a smaller version of your life, but that cannot come with you into the larger one. It looks like tolerating the disorientation that comes with genuine growth without interpreting that disorientation as evidence that you made the wrong move. Disorientation is not misconception, Chun who is no longer in the territory their nervous system has mapped, which means they are exactly where growth requires them to be. It looks like allowing the people around you to witness a version of you that is not yet fully formed, not yet polished, not yet operating at the level it is moving toward. Because the fear of being seen in process is one of the most powerful forces that keeps chosen people trapped in preparation, indefinitely, endlessly refining and never releasing, endlessly developing and never deploying, endlessly getting ready for a moment of readiness that never quite arrives. Because readiness was never the actual requirement. Obedience was. Availability was. The willingness to be seen mid-step, mid-growth, mid-becoming was. Right now, if these words are touching the specific place in you where the call to step out has been pressing against the resistance of your comfort zone, I want you to stop for a moment and type these 4 words in the comments below. I choose my crown. Not as a performance, not as a gesture toward an audience, as a declaration between you and the God who placed that crown on your head before you arrived in this world and who has been watching you carry it through every season that tested whether you would keep it. Type it now. I choose my crown. Let that be your agreement with what heaven has already decided about your life. Let that be the moment you stop negotiating with smallness and begin to walk in the full weight of what you were always called to carry. Your assignment is not behind you. It is not buried under the weight of what you have been through. It is ahead of you, waiting in the territory, just beyond the boundary of what currently feels safe. And the God who drew your destiny drew it there on purpose. There is a season in every chosen life when the seeds that were sown in tears begin to break through the ground. Not all at once, not in the dramatic and instantaneous way that the waiting made you imagine it might happen, but one by one, in an order that only makes sense in retrospect, in a sequence that reveals itself as intentional only after enough of it has unfolded to show the pattern. And the pattern, when it finally becomes visible, is always more coherent and more beautiful and more precisely arranged than anything you could have designed for yourself in the seasons when you were doing the sowing and could not yet see what the ground was holding beneath the surface. You have been sowing for longer than you realize, not only in the moments that felt like intentional acts of faith, not only in the seasons when you were consciously planting something with the expectation of a harvest. You have been sowing in the moments that felt like pure loss. You sowed when you chose integrity in a situation where dishonesty would have been easier and more immediately rewarding. You sowed when you forgave someone who did not ask for forgiveness and did not deserve it by any measure your emotions could calculate. You sowed when you showed up for another person in a season when you yourself were depleted beyond what anyone around you fully understood. You sowed when you kept believing in a promise that had no visible evidence to support it, when you kept praying into what felt like silence, when you kept your hands open in seasons when everything in you wanted to close them around something certain and hold on. Every one of those moments was a seed. And seeds do not look like harvests when they go into the ground. They look like loss. They look like something valuable being placed into darkness with no immediate return, no visible transformation, no confirmation in the moment that what was given is being received and held and worked upon by forces that operate beneath the surface of what the eye can see. The ground does not show you what it is doing with what you give it. It simply receives, and then it works. And the working happens in the hidden place, in the dark and the silence and the waiting, in the exact conditions that feel most like nothing is happening, and most unlike the conditions you would associate with growth and preparation and the building of something that will eventually emerge into the light. But the ground has been working through every season that felt unproductive, through every period that looked from the outside like stagnation or regression, or a life that was not moving in any meaningful direction. Beneath all of it, the seeds you sowed in faithfulness and in sacrifice and in the quiet and costly acts of obedience that no one ever saw or applauded or acknowledged. Those seeds were being worked upon by the same God who designed the harvest they were always meant to produce. And now the season is shifting, the ground is warming, and what was placed into darkness is beginning to move toward light with the unstoppable momentum of something that has been prepared for exactly this moment. The harvest that is coming in your life is not a reward for perfect performance. Let that settle into you completely, because it matters more than it might initially appear to. The harvest is not coming because you earned it through sufficient goodness or adequate faith or a spiritual track record that finally crossed some threshold of worthiness. It is coming because seeds sown in obedience always produce a harvest in their season, and your season has arrived. The harvest does not consult your feelings of readiness. It does not wait for you to believe in it fully before it begins to emerge. It comes when the appointed time comes, because that is the nature of a harvest. It is not contingent on the farmer's confidence. It is contingent on the faithfulness of the one who governs the seasons. And the one who governs your seasons has never lost track of a single seed you sowed. Not one act of faithfulness has gone unrecorded. Not one sacrifice has been absorbed into the indifferent earth and forgotten. Not one prayer offered in the darkness has dissolved into silence without being received by the one to whom it was directed. Every seed is accounted for. Every seed is producing. And the harvest that is emerging now is proportional not to the seeds you felt good about sowing, not to the ones that came with visible confirmation and immediate encouragement, but to the total sum of everything you gave in every season, including the ones that cost you the most and returned the least in the immediate term. The Psalms carry a word in chapter 126, verse 5 and 6, that speaks directly into this moment with a precision that only God could have arranged. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. The image in that verse is not of a person who sowed in comfort and reaped in comfort. It is of a person who went out weeping, who carried the seed through a season of genuine grief and genuine difficulty and genuine uncertainty about whether the sowing was worth continuing. And that person, the one who sowed through tears rather than waiting for a more emotionally favorable season to begin planting, that is the one who returns with songs of joy. Not a polite smile of mild satisfaction. Songs, the kind of return that produces a response that cannot be contained in ordinary gratitude because what has come back exceeds by such a margin what was given that the only adequate response is joy that overflows into sound. That is the return that is being prepared for you. Not because your tears were more numerous or more sincere than anyone else's, but because you kept sowing through them. Because you did not wait until the grief passed to be obedient. Because you carried the seed into the field in seasons when the carrying itself was an act of will that cost you more than anyone around you knew. And now the fields that received your weeping are preparing to return your harvest. The areas of your life where you sowed most sacrificially are the areas where the emergence will be most dramatic. The relationships where you gave without guarantee of return. The creative work you invested in during seasons when no one was watching and no one was affirming. And the only reason to keep going was because something in you could not stop. The financial faithfulness you practiced in seasons of scarcity, when generosity was the last thing your circumstances seemed to support. The spiritual consistency you maintained in seasons when God felt distant and prayer felt like speaking into an empty room. All of it, every dimension of the sowing, every field that received your tears, every ground that held your sacrifice in silence, all of it is now in harvest season. And harvest season looks different from what the waiting seasons trained you to expect. It does not always arrive with dramatic announcement. Sometimes it comes as a conversation that opens the door you had given up on. Sometimes it comes as an idea that arrives with clarity and a completeness that did not come from your own thinking. Sometimes it comes as a relationship that appears seemingly from nowhere and carries within it the precise connection that everything you have been building has been waiting to be linked to. Sometimes it comes as a sudden shift in momentum, where things that were resistant for years begin to move with an ease that surprises everyone, including you. Because the ground finally releasing what it has been holding always looks like sudden fortune to people who did not watch the sowing. But you watched the sowing, you lived through it, you know what it cost. And so when the harvest comes, you will know it for what it is. Not luck, not coincidence. Not the random alignment of favorable circumstances that happen to point in your direction. You will recognize it as the faithfulness of a God who counts every seed and honors every act of obedience and never allows a harvest to be lost that belongs to a life that kept showing up to the field even in the seasons when showing up was the hardest available choice. Your hands that went out carrying seed and tears are about to come back carrying sheaves. The weeping was real. The harvest is realer, and the songs of joy that are forming in the distance are already moving toward you with the certainty of a season that has been appointed since before you planted the first seed. The fields are ready. The harvest belongs to you, and the God who watched every act of sowing is now presiding over every act of return. What God is about to do in your life will leave the people who watched you struggle without the language to describe what they are now witnessing. Not because your story will become unrecognizable, but because the distance between where you have been and where you are going will be so undeniable, so complete, so visibly orchestrated by a hand that operates beyond the reach of human strategy, that the only honest response available to anyone watching will be acknowledgement that something beyond ordinary explanation has occurred. The people who knew you in your wilderness seasons, the ones who watched you carry the weight of an assignment they could not fully see, the ones who witnessed the breaking and the waiting and the almost. Those people are about to become witnesses to something that reframes everything they thought they understood about your story and about the God who wrote it. This is not a small thing that is coming. It is not a modest improvement in circumstances or a gradual easing of the pressures that have marked your recent seasons. What God is releasing into your life in this hour is proportional to the preparation you have been through. And the preparation has been extensive. It has been deep. It has reached into dimensions of who you are that surface-level success could never have accessed. And because the preparation has been that thorough, what is being released is of a scale that your former self, the one who existed before the difficult seasons began their work in you, would not have had the internal capacity to carry. But you are not your former self. You have been remade. You have been enlarged. You have been brought through exactly the right fires in exactly the right sequence to produce exactly the right quality of strength and clarity and faith that what is coming requires you to have. And it is coming now. Not as a distant prophetic promise that belongs to some unspecified future. Now, in this season, in the days and weeks and months that are immediately ahead of you. The shift that has been building beneath the surface of your life, the one you have been feeling without being able to name, is about to break through into visibility in a way that cannot be explained away or minimized or attributed to anything other than the sovereign and intentional movement of a God who has never once lost sight of you. Before we move to the close of this message, I want to do something that feels right for this moment. I want to pray with you, not over you from a distance, with you, because what you are carrying deserves to be brought before God, not just in the private moments of your own quiet, but in the company of others who are standing in the same season, believing the same promises, and holding on to the same God who has held on to every one of them through every moment they almost let go. So if you are willing, wherever you are right now, whether you are sitting in a room alone or listening while the world moves around you, I invite you to close your eyes for just a moment and receive these words as a prayer spoken over your life. Father, I bring before you the person who is hearing these words right now. You know their name. You know every season they have survived to arrive at this moment. You know the weight they have carried, and the tears they have sown, and the mornings they chose to keep going when stopping would have been so much easier. You see the crown they almost laid down and the faith they chose to keep, even when it cost them more than they knew they had left to give. And I ask you now, in this moment, to let them feel the fullness of your presence in a way that goes beyond what words can produce. Let something shift in them right now that they will carry forward from this day. Confirm in their spirit that the harvest is real, that the shift is real, that what you placed in them before they arrived in this world has never been canceled and will never be revoked. Let this be the moment they stop doubting the crown and start walking in it fully. Let what you are about to do in their life be so undeniable, so complete, and so clearly from your hand that everyone who witnesses it will have no choice but to acknowledge that you are God and that this person was always yours. In the name that is above every name, amen. Take a breath, let that land, and know that what was just spoken over you was not performance. It was agreement between this moment and the intention of a God who orchestrated your arrival here with the same precision he has brought to every other detail of your story. Now let me speak to what is directly ahead. The harvest season that is opening in your life is going to require your mind to operate at a level that matches the scale of what is coming. The opportunities that are beginning to surface are going to require clarity of thought, speed of discernment, and a quality of creative and strategic thinking that goes beyond what stress and exhaustion and prolonged seasons of spiritual warfare have left readily available. This is not a criticism. It is an observation about the practical reality of a human mind that has been carrying heavy things for a long time. And it is the reason that tools designed to restore and activate the brain's highest functioning matter in a season like this one, the genius wave, exists precisely for this moment in precisely this kind of life. 7 minutes a day to restore the frequency that your mind was always designed to operate in. The link is in the pinned comment below and in the description of this video. If you sense that your thinking needs to be sharper and your clarity needs to be deeper for what is coming, that is where you go. If this journey through these 10 sections has moved something real in you, if something in this message has reached a place that does not usually get reached, then I want to gently ask you to do 3 things before you leave this space. Share this video with someone who is in the middle of a season they do not yet understand. Someone whose harvest is coming, but who needs to hear that the seeds they sowed in tears are being held by a God who counts everyone. Hit the like button so that this message can find its way to the next person who needs it at exactly the right moment in their own story. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, do it now, because the messages that are coming are part of a continuing word for this season, and every one of them is designed to meet you exactly where you are and carry you forward into exactly where you are going. This channel is no longer monetized through YouTube. We have made that choice deliberately because we believe these messages need to reach people without the interference of algorithms driven by advertising revenue. We choose to keep making these videos because we believe the words being spoken through this space are finding the right people at the right moments, and that work is worth continuing, regardless of what it costs us to sustain it. If you want to partner with us in keeping this ministry moving forward, if you feel led to help ensure that the next person standing at their own turning point can find a message like this one waiting for them, you can support this channel through the donate link in the pinned comment below or in the description of this video. We are grateful for every act of support, every prayer offered on behalf of this work, and every share that carries these words further than our own reach could take them. And if you are not in a position to give financially right now, know that your presence here, your engagement with this content, and your willingness to share it with others, because already a form of partnership that we receive with genuine gratitude. You arrived at this message for a reason. You stayed through every section for a reason. And the reason is not coincidence, and it is not the algorithm. It is the same intentionality that has marked every significant moment of your life, the hand of a God who knows where you are and what you need, and when you need it, and who has never once been late with a word that was meant for you. What He is about to do will be so big, so complete, so undeniably His, that the world watching your life will run out of natural explanations before they run out of evidence. The shift is real. The harvest is real. The crown is on your head, and it is not coming off. And the God who placed it there is not finished writing the story that began the moment He chose you before the foundation of the world. You are chosen. You were always chosen. And what comes next will prove it to everyone who ever doubted it, including the voice inside you that tried to make you doubt it yourself. Go forward. The best of your story is not behind you. It is waiting just ahead, arranged by hands that have never dropped anything they promised to hold.